We are recording from the ashram of our revered Guru, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda in Miami, Florida. Today is June the 18th, 2013, Tuesday evening, and tonight Swamiji will lecture on Yoga Vedanta. This is series 2010, class number 272. And now, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda.
Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Dhyanamurtim Dvandvatītam Gagan Sadrisham Tattvamasyaadi Lakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatītam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namam. Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme precept. Yoga Vasistha in Upashama Prakarana Section 64. Sage Vasistha continues to give deep, profound insight into the state of enlightenment and the means, implying the practice of vichar, inquiry, that leads one to enlightenment. O Rama, when the light of the Chit shines forth, Chit is pure consciousness, that's the intrinsic reality of every individual. You are the shining sun. But don't become too elated. Led by ignorance, you have moved away. The shining sun is completely intact, but your focus has become a pot of water. And there you find yourself shimmering and shining, dependent on the water. Anyone shakes the water and the sun there is shaking. But all the while, whether the sun shakes in a jar or it moves from one jar to another, you pour the water into another jar. The reflected sun goes on experiencing different situations. But all the time, the reality of the reflected sun is the sun. And that sun is shining constantly. That becomes your goal. Your vision has two ways to go. One towards the product of ignorance, another towards the reality. Product of ignorance is called prayer. It seems easy for a person to allow the mind to become easily agitated. It's easy. But it's not good. Each time you go on training your mind to be agitated, the mind becomes accustomed to it. And you are giving reality to your agitation. while you have the opportunity, look within yourself. Who am I? You are the sun. Mind has the opportunity to have the awareness of boundless joy, boundless light. Or move away from that and exist in a state of agitation, torment, degradation. This point has to be understood. And with great patience, a resolve has to develop in your soul that I will discover myself. I will realize the self, no matter what it costs. It costs a great deal for your ego. दिनानि जीव्यते तानि सानन्दास्ते क्रियाक्रमा आत्मचन्द्रोदितायेषु चिज्योत्स्ना हृदयाम्बरे. Those days are full of life. The mind has turned towards I am that, or is busy doing that, moving away from degrading process brought about by ignorance, allowing it to follow an uplifting process. Whatever degree of success you gain, to that extent your life has been purposeful. Those days are meaningful. Those actions are blissful. If you have allowed in your heart the moon of the self to shine forth. Here again, subtle point is that also gives you an insight into what we call Guru Purnima. Purnima is a full moon. Full moon gives you the best. Full sun is not so pleasing. It burns up everything. The full moon showers nectar. And it becomes possible because your mind is a reflector. All the time you are reflecting the light of the self. But there has, due to ignorance, that process of reflection is restricted, refracted. And therefore, everyone suffers from countless miseries. And whatever happiness comes in the heart, it waxes and wanes. Simple point is how to make your mind a full reflector of the divine within you. Instead of allowing the mind to become a full agitator of the undivided within you. As the mind is led to attain purity and higher level of control, it continues to reflect the light of the sun in more and more. It waxes on until the mind has become a full reflector. That's then the Guru Purnima has been celebrated. Just as the moon brings out coolness, even though the source behind the light of the moon is the sun. But the sunlight is destroyer, a total destroyer, like Shiva, Hara. Reflecting through the mind, that divine self acts like the rays of the moon, nectarine rays of the moon, delightful for everybody around. That coolness emanating from the mind that reflects the light of the self is also allegorically described as nectar, shower of nectar. Those are real friends who help you towards that attainment. Those scriptures are real scriptures that guide you towards that. Those days are really lived purposefully if your mind has turned towards that goal. O Rama, now Vasistha gives a very pathetic description of a soul involved in the world process. He adopts the allegorical description of an ox that has fallen into a little muddy puddle, and your task is to rescue that ox. Now all the details are built upon that basis. Most times I skip them, but this time I'm going to give you the whole taste of it. There are hundreds of ropes that keep the soul fettered. And what are those ropes? Vishayabhilash, desire for pleasures of the senses. Anything you desire in the world comes in the same category. Unless your desire relates to attaining God realization, grace of God. If your desire relates to wealth, relates to fame, name, success, glory, all that is Vishayabhilash, constant desires. And they are ropes. You are being driven, dragged by those ropes. The sun has no need anything from this earth planet. But reflected sun, unable to discover I am the sun, is working hard how to snatch a little glory from the other pot or degrade another pot. The reflected sun is quite busy, threatened by others, threatening others. This is not a miserable predicament. The reality of life. Nothing is being exaggerated. And there are hundreds of ropes binding a person. Those karmas and desires are endless. In this state, little straws are thrown before the face, straws from the world, bhogas, enjoyments. They're straw, they're dry, nothing in it. But when you start chewing it, it pricks your tongue. Blood oozes out. And say, how wonderful. I'm adding more to it. Greedy for straw-like enjoyments. Enjoyments are nothing but straw, dry stuff. Things that are of no value, people use a general parlance, just a straw. And this bull, the soul, suffering from the disease of the world process, is an old bull. The old age itself has made it weak, in a state of torment. And it is breathing heavily, constant grief. Alas, alas doesn't let you breathe much, but heaving sighs, not of relief, but sighs of agony. Carrying the burden of heavy load of worms, load of misery. And mind doesn't know it. Rather you are excited. How many wonderful things are there. When will I get the time to look into all those packets and purses and bags and plastics? And all that becomes a big burden on the head. Now, it's a very practical understanding. We look at how people collect in their life so many things, memories. And a little hurricane comes. If you don't like hurricane, then twisters come. And suddenly all that you collected is gone away. So thank God I didn't go away. But sometimes even the life comes to an end. That's the predicament of being in the world. Deh dhare ka danda hai, sab kahu ko hoye. The moment you have entered embodiment, you have done the most illegal deed that you should have ever done. And there is no court case. You are already sentenced. Sab kahu ko hoye. You say, no, I'm enlightened. Not so. Whether you are enlightened or not enlightened, body-wise you are going to come to an end. But what's then the difference? Jnani bhugte jnana se. One who is enlightened sees the pot being tossed over, the reflected sun disappearing from it. He has been the reflected sun, but now he realizes, I am the sun. So, with the vision and understanding, I am the sun, all the misery that the pot is undergoing is faced with great joy, great fun. Think of the sun up there, full blaze. Think of the reflected sun, full of misery. Think both are being connected with a subtle thread of knowledge. Therefore, to the reflected sun, the same things will happen to as any other reflected sun. Dehdhare ka dand hai, it's going to be destroyed. But jnani bhugte jnana se. But because of the knowledge, I am that, you continue to remain beyond. Put it in another way. Clouds create so many noises. Also, they create the illusions that the sky has become broken, patches of blue. But the sky remains always the same. If a patch of blue knows I am the sky, it watches itself lose its patchwood without dispatching itself to misery. Abiding in the forest of bhava, implying birth and death, the cycle of birth and death, is kind of a forest. From one forest you tumble into another forest. Negative karmas stick to you like very difficult type of mud that you can't easily take it away from yourself. And in that condition, the soul, like an ox that is slipped into a pond in a miserable state. Even in that state, the ox closes the eyes, becomes relaxed, gone to sleep. Raga dvesha, attachment and hatred, they are like teeth of vampire. And so, anyone who is in this world process is constantly being chewed up by raga dvesha, attachment. Attachment hits you on one neck and hatred hits you another. Teeth of vampires. And craving is that rope that the animals, the rope goes through in between the nostrils to the, called nath. noses are threaded by ropes. And what is that rope? Craving. And mind is the merchant that has bought you. In other words, you have to constantly go on pleasing the mind. If mind is not pleased, you are going to be tormented. And lots of relatives. They are forms of bondage, like a person being tied up by a rope coming from east, a rope coming from west, a rope coming from behind, different ropes coming from different sides, pulling you in different degrees. Another simile is given, like if your life is based on a very large family and all the gathering sons, grandsons, father and grandfather, think of lots of them. Your existence is like a caterpillar with hundreds of legs, feet. And that becomes miserable because it looks like you have hundreds of feet to walk on, but watch the caterpillar, how much does it gain any speed? Unable to get the cool shade to relieve oneself of the terrible heat, the heat of three tapas, three fires, subjective, troubles coming from body and mind. If you can handle that, then there is another trouble coming from people, animals, birds around you. Not so much birds, I'm talking about human beings. And then that is not enough. Acts of God. If you leave yourself to exist in a purposeless way, without any purpose, then all that you do is to be tortured by these three fires. And you go on being tortured. Therefore, do something about it. Outwardly appearing very muscular, strong, inwardly grief, torn by grief. That's in brief the description. Ever interested in kamya karmas, actions that you imagine will give you what you want? To gain from the world fulfillment of your desires. That's called kamya karma. What you don't realize, that fulfillment of your desires is fooling you. Because your desires are extremely little. The mind doesn't have the capacity to desire in a broad and a divine way, profound way. So what you are desiring today, it may seem to your mind you are desiring the biggest thing. When you get it, you realize it is just a little. You should have desired a little better. However, the entire world, without a mind moving to enlightenment, without that insight into attaining enlightenment, the entire world is moving in kamya karmas, actions led by desires, and a process in which the desires never end, they are never fulfilled. And then there are inspirers of this activity. There are wonderful ads with ringing bells. Attain this goal. Come and get involved with this business. Here is, soon you will get tremendous power, great popularity. You will go viral. You don't have to work hard. These are the ads. Constant ads go on. But even in the Vasistha's time, he uses the word arthavad, which is very similar, praising the vanities of the world. That's what you hear from the friends. Did you get that particular jewel? Did you see someone was wearing a wonderful necklace? Did you know how that necklace came? Talks of all this, constantly highlighting the worldly values. And constantly whipped by the result of sinful karmas, negative karmas, like errors that you have done, and the result is like you are being whipped by them. Such is the jiva, a kind of an ox, sinking in a little lake of the world process. It has been sinking for a long time, suffering a lot. Be kind. Don't let this ox go on suffering. Bring compassion in your heart. And with the help of jnana, knowledge, save your soul. How does jnana, knowledge, save the soul? Bondage is caused by unenlightened mind. Unenlightened mind is like a dense cloud. As long as the cloud is dense and obscure, the light of the sun doesn't pass through, is obstructed by it. Your chitta, the mind stuff, is veiling the light of the self. Allow that light to pass through that cloud of your mind. Spiritual sadhana is focused on that. The process can be very simple. It can be very difficult. But when it happens, it is simple. A ray of the sun passes through the cloud. And the moment a ray has entered the cloud feels a special change within itself. Its value changes, its colors change. Instead of following the path of darkness, the soul begins to follow the path of the northern path of increasing daylight. Three great techniques are involved in destroying the cloud of the chitta. Manonash, working with your conscious mind, not allowing it to be swept by ragadvesha, attachment and hatred. Because the more you allow your mind to be fed by attachment and hatred, the more it swells. In other words, put in another way, try to work for enjoying serenity. Otherwise, human mind has only two types of enjoyment. One is a state of suspense, tension. Another, a state of elation. Pleasure, pain, joy, sorrow. That's what human mind goes after. If neither is there, one says the day has passed in boredom. Nothing happened today. But if you advance in a spiritual way, you scatter raga, dvesha. Neither the experience of pleasure has value for you, nor the experience of pain. Both are transient. Both are illusory. Mind must turn towards the skylight, the eternal self. Turn towards the sun. Move away from the reflected sun and its ramifications. That movement of the mind towards the sun, that is the beginning of a spiritual movement, the beginning of the end of the world process. So that's called manonash. Next point, vasana akshaya. Subtle desires and impressions of the unconscious, they must undergo a transformation. If you allow the rays of the sun to come into the cloud goes on changing its texture, its appearance, becomes more silken, more with dazzling light. Similarly, a change must occur in your vasanas. The experience of that change is immense. External attainments can be seen in people, and that's all people can do. They watch what a person has attained, how many things he has gained. But chitta contents, vasanas and samskaras, they are not visible. However, vasana term itself implies there is a kind of a fragrance coming out of it. If you have negative vasanas, you have a lot of onions and garlics oozing out of every pore of your hair. But if your vasanas have become purified, amazing fragrance, fragrance that inspires the heart of people. So that's called vasana kshaya. And in order to succeed in that, you need to do japa, meditation, devotional practices, and all type of activities that allow your heart to be free of rajas, tamas. And in order to accomplish these, manonash and vasana kshaya, you need to adopt tattva jnana, the knowledge that is given to you by scriptures. O Rama, satsanga is the best remedy speaking allegorically, satsanga is the best ship to take you across the ocean of the world process. O Rama, a person, a thoughtful person should not live in any place in the world where satsanga is not available. Otherwise, you are living in a vast desert. But if you have the possibility of satsanga, you are living in an oasis. You are living in a miraculous garden where divine qualities in you bring about a cool shade of peace, where Satpurushas do not dwell. There you should not live. Satpurushas, people who are practicing spirituality, talking about spirituality, where you don't have the possibility of satsanga, if you don't have thoughtful nourishment for your mind, nourishment that is for spiritual advancement, then no matter how many things you might have attained, lots of money, lots of success, lots of this and lots of that, all that has very little meaning. Satpurusha, Yoga Vasistha describes again in a poetic language. Satpurusha, one who is giving you satsanga, is called Satpurusha. Yes. Satpurusha is like a champa tree. Champa is a special flower, gives immense fragrance. A tree that brings out lots of flowers. Satsanga is Satpurusha, the one who conducts satsanga, gives satsanga, is like that tree of fragrant flowers. The words of that cool your fevers, the cool the three fires that emanate from his lips, they are the leaves, glistening leaves of the tree. And the constant dedication to doing good to others, that's the shade of that tree. The smiles from his face are the flowers of the tree. Under that champa tree, even if you were to visit it just for a moment, that impression will haunt you forever. You are bound to attain the highest. Tat swarg apvarg sukh dharya tulaik ang, Tulsidas says. If you were to bring all the benefits that you can get out of heaven and out of all prosperous conditions of life, put them all together, pile them up on one side of a balancing, the balancing scales, on one scale bring all that, and one moment of satsanga and its joy on the other. And this one moment outweighs all that. Try to delve deep into that statement. Stripped of satsanga, the soul has gone through countless lives. Each life you had a whole bundle of attainments. And all those bundles and bundles piled up get into a satsanga that is kindles aspiration for God realization. One matchstick. And that outweighs all. To give you a simpler way to understand. Suppose you live in a cave. There's no daylight. But you are a great artist. And somehow, with the help of ordinary lights, candle lights, etc., you have painted lots of rising suns. Yet splendor of light, and all walls are filled with that. Put all your art, billions of them, on one side, and just allow one ray of the sun to come to it. That real ray far outweighs all this. Therefore, strive to get that real experience, a touch of satsanga. Until you get it, don't go to sleep. It's a figurative language. Don't resign to procrastination. Continue striving for attaining the highest without taking recourse to dullness of mind. And with this I will conclude. Om Shanti Shanti.